Our next speaker is Dr. Naoki Saito from NISTEP. Naoki Saito started his career at Science and Technology Agency in 1987. He also worked at Embassy of Japan in Australia as our first secretary, and Bangkok office of Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency as our director. He will give a talk on towards evidence based on STI policy planning in socio-economic context, highlights from recent outputs of NISTEP. Please welcome Dr. Naoki Saito.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. I'm Naoki Saito, NISTEP Japan. And it is really my honor and pleasure to be a speaker to this significant international forum, along with the other distinguished guest speakers from Asian countries, Europe, and the US. And I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to President Park to invite us. Today, I'd like to briefly introduce some recent efforts of ourselves, NISTEP, towards the planning of evidence-based STI policy as a foundation to strengthen innovation capacity in Japan, which should be the title and main concept of this session. My topics presented today include some key indicators and the figures, our recent research outputs, and our key mission relating to the evidence-based policy planning, such as SCIREX, which is abbreviation of Science for Redesigning STI Policy, and last but not least, PhD holders database. First, I'd like to overview some key figures of Japan's STI trends in international context. This graph shows the trends of total R&D expenditure in key countries, where you can see rapid increase of China and steady growth of EU and also steady growth of Korea, while Japan seems to stagnate in these few years, in particular after the so-called Lehman Brothers crash in 2008. These graphs show the trends of quantity and quality of papers in key countries, where you can see drastic increase of China and steady growth of Korea, while the share of US and Japan is in contrary dropping. On the other hand, the share decline of all papers and top 10% papers for UK and Germany seems not so sharp, and the share of top 1% papers for Germany is even growing gradually these few years, which is a remarkable exception for those advanced countries. When considering the background factors for these differences between Japan and some European countries, we found that there is a significant gap for the total number of internationally co-authored papers between them. In addition to this gap, these few years, you can observe that the number of Japan's domestic papers as well started to decline. When we see the numbers of top 10% highly cited papers, there is also a significant gap for internationally co-authored papers between them, while domestic papers seem to be at a similar level. That may still suggest the necessity of more drastic globalization of Japanese research community to take a global leadership in certain research field, I guess. As a macroscopic input flows of R&D, this shows nationwide R&D money flow from sector to sector in Japan. compared with other key countries such as US and UK, eminent features would be major part of funding comes from industry, just as discussed in the previous sessions, while very limited portion of government's funding flows to the business sector, which is also sharp contrast with other key Asian countries such as China and Korea. This summarizes as output indicators the level of university-industry collaborations in Japan. Collaborative research seems to steadily grow, with the exception of 2009 drop that is mainly due to the Lehman crash, while the licensing income, the right-hand side, seems to saturate in these few years. The next topic, I'd like to introduce some snapshots of our recent original research outputs relating to the evidence-based policy planning. This is a visualized figure from Science Map 2012, spotting in total 823 hotspot research areas and integrated 18 domains in the global context, which means a kind of a meta-structure of hot research areas. And it seems that the global landscape did not change significantly in last few years, while analyzing country-to-country performance breakdown of this map, the diversity of research areas participated by Japanese researchers seemed lower than those of UK and Germany, which might be another weakness of Japanese research community. This time, onto the latest science map, we have introduced a new approach of analysis from time axis and spatial axis, which is titled socio-economic chart. The areas of strong continuity and cognitive linkage with other research areas, which is colored in brown, are categorized as continent type, very firm ground of the academic activities, while the areas with weak continuity and scarce linkage as categorized as a small island type, which is colored in blue. And in between, there are two types, that is peninsula type and island types. When comparing Japan with key countries such as US, European countries, and China, we can observe that the largest number in Japan of the type is a continent type research area. And the share of small island type is quite smaller than the others. That may have affected the difference of the quantity of core papers in Japan and those in US and European countries. And it would also imply the significance of funding for small island type, a kind of exploring, very ambitious type of research in Japan. Next, just to appropriately measure the level of innovation in private sector, we, NISTEP, are conducting a series of national innovation survey since 2003 based upon the OECD's Oslo Manual. The latest survey was conducted in 2012, and some key results were submitted to OECD and UNESCO for international comparison and analysis. The latest national survey would be soon to be conducted in coming autumn, and the result will be made public sometime next year. This is an excerpt from OECD's STI Scoreboard 2013 with Japanese data provided by JNIS, our survey, showing quite a low level product service innovation by Japanese firms. It is a bit unexpected result for our institute, but behind the scene factor for Japan's somewhat unexpected low innovation level would be our tendency of rather humble and narrower perception of the concept of innovation. compared with much higher level nations such as Germany. As for another hidden factor for low-level recognition of innovation in Japan, following few slides refer to our own observation of Japan-US contrast for the recognition of so-called youth-inspired basic research, which is typically categorized as Pashto type of research in comparison with Bohr or pure basic type research and Edison or pure applied type of research. In this survey, we defined those who responded very important both to the question of the pursuit of fundamental principles and also for solving real-life issues as Pashto type. And you can see some significant difference for the ratio of Pashto type in Japan and the US, while there seems no big gap both for the Bohr and Edison type of research. This is another annual survey of NISTEP known as Teiten survey, which is a similar kind of Bank of Japan's Tankan survey for STI system. This aims at qualitatively tracking the status of STI system under the policy framework of our S&T basic plan through the same questionnaire survey to a fixed cohort comprised of experts in academia, public research institutions, and the industry. The total respondents exceeds some thousands of people. And this shows changes of indices, sorry for the small characters, for the status of R&D human resources. G1, G2, and such represent the university grouping based upon the share of scientific publications. For example, G1 universities, that is over 5% share in Japan, including Tohoku, Tokyo, and Kyoto, and Osaka. For details, I have provided some reference slides to my presentation materials. And we can see that in group 1, the situation of the quantity of young researchers and their research environment for independently doing active R&D is getting worse, while the environment to have more human resources with desired competency entering into doctoral programs seems getting better. Another material, this describes the situation of industry-academia collaboration. You can see that in the group 3 universities, most of the indices seems getting better, while some items in top universities, G1 universities, such as level of personnel exchange with private sector and operation of intellectual property are getting worse, which would be a clear contrast between different university groups. Indices of Innovation Overview Group, which is composed mainly from industry experts, seem to be getting better as well, which can be recognized as a good signal for the universities, public research institutions to collaborate. So for the time constraints, I will skip this slide. As the third topic today, our key missions toward the near future would include the establishment of data and information infrastructure and survey of careers of doctoral graduates. These programs should have an international context, and we are trying to explore a possibility to further collaborate with both through the bilateral and multilateral channel. This shows overall structure and some latest achievements of our data and information infrastructure, though most of the contents so far are only made open, available in Japanese, I apologize. For instance, we have developed and made open various dictionaries of universities and public research institutions to calibrate the fluctuation of their expressions, and also some correspondence tables to combine different but interrelated databases such as patents and R&D related data. And this shows another significant activities being promoted toward more effective data infrastructure for the policy. We have been developing a network of professional organizations involved with data and information management of R&D funding, mainly consisted of funding agencies such as Japan's Society for Promotion of Science, JSPS, and Japan Science and Technology Agency, JST, and NIDO. We held some meetings and concluded a consensus paper and a proposal on setting a common information platform of R&D funding, its outputs, and participating researchers. And also we are trying to feed in the proposal to the ongoing process of formulating our next S&T basic plan. And furthermore, one of the largest newly established unified funding agency for medical research in Japan, AMED, has also joined this network recently. And this slide describes a funding history for the research on developing blue LED that has led 3 Japanese scientists to the Nobel Prize on Physics last year. It symbolically shows a significance of seamless, diverse, and harmonized funding for promising research projects, which has mainly comprised from block funding for the National University and kakenhi, that's a bottom-up type of funding for scientific research, and JST, project funding. That is a typical top-down type of funding. If any one of these diverse funding should be missed out, the drastic and very disruptive innovation for realizing blue LED would not be achieved, I believe. And this is also our significant research topic. The last topic today, comprehensive study on doctoral degree holders in and around Japan, who should be the central players for S&T-based innovation in Japan. Already, US and the UK have established a comprehensive database and tracking system of postdoctoral researchers as a form of cohort data. Now we are trying to build a similar cohort or paneled data of a same age group based upon each university's alumni network. Already many leading universities have expressed their intention to participate in this system to track and monitor the careers of PhD holders. And we have started some pilot operation of this program with 20 universities in total to effectively realize and sustainably operate this system. Sorry for also a hectic slide, but in addition to the initial 12 universities participating to the pilot stage, this year, 8 more universities, including Tohoku, Tokyo, Kyoto, and Kyushu University, have expressed their will to participate to the pilot operation from this fiscal year. Furthermore, other leading universities such as Waseda and Nagoya University are also considering to participate, which means that our system could cover all of the alliance of leading research universities known as RU11, Research Universities 11, in near future. So fully utilizing these tools and databases, we believe that we can effectively link the information of R&D fundings, its outputs, and main players. And so based upon that kind of information, we will be able to consider more effective and efficient science policy as well as the innovation policy and programs. And this is the end of my presentation, but I'm so sorry to present too many slides in a limited time. So in compensation for that, I brought in total 20 handouts of my presentation to distribute. So I'll be happy to hand over to you. First come, first serve basis. And we have another significant research topic, that is science and technology foresight. But that topic, one of my colleagues, Dr. Urashima, will make a presentation in tomorrow's afternoon session, so please look forward to it. And I believe that for most of the topics I mentioned today, international cooperation and policy harmonization will also be essential. And we in NISTEP are more than happy to contribute to the international networking, like this kind of a think tank network, and cooperation in S&T and innovation, particularly with Asian neighbors participating to this forum. And thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Dr. Saito.